And when we talk about natural health products, I mean, we're basically talking about everything you would find in a health food store, your supplement section. If you went to a naturopathic doctor or a homeopathic doctor or a traditional Chinese practitioner or a nutritionist or herbalist, the types of remedies they would give you, these are natural health products. So, it can be something as simple as vitamin C or vitamin D, or it can be, a complicated multivitamin or multi-herb product. These are all natural health products. So basically things that are in our food supply that we use for medicine. For most of our existence, that was our medicine. I mean, I like using ginger tea as an example. I mean, has it been 1,000 years or has it been longer that we've used ginger tea to treat nausea?
Mm-hmm.
It treats nausea. Like, do we need to run a double-blind clinical trial to show that ginger tea treats nausea? Well, no, of course we don't, but we're moving into a world where we do. This is really about control and it's about money. So we started introducing chemicals that we could patent as medicines. And, this is actually a relatively new concept because intellectual property rights, we had to invent them.
Yeah.
And, we had to get, chemistry and stuff like that going. Sorry, I'm just moving out of the sun. We had to get chemistry and things like that going where, we can tweak a chemical. So we've been using white willow bark for how long? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years,
right,
to treat pain. So Bayer comes along and isolates one of the main ingredients that is a pain reliever in white willow bark. They tweak the molecule so they can get a patent on it. And all of a sudden now we have aspirin. Now, aspirin compared to white willow bark is horrifically dangerous. Canadians die every year from taking it. And, a lot of them take, the baby aspirin every day for heart issues, which, as I understand it, truly can be helpful. But even in that small amount can cause gastrointestinal bleeding that can be a huge concern. Now, the British government did a study that showed that white willow bark has the same effect for the heart condition, but has no gastrointestinal bleeding. But nobody's going to tell you to switch to white willow bark. What we've done is we've made it law that if you want to treat a serious health condition, you have to go through what's called the new drug approval process, found at C.08.001 of our drug regulations. Now, that process is so deliberately onerous that you can't go through it without spending hundreds of millions of dollars. You just simply can't. And especially, if it was a complex multi-ingredient product, you can't. Well, in my lifetime, every single product that has gone through that process had a patent on it, except for one, which was sponsored by government. And the reason for that is you're not going to go through that process without a patent, because if you get through it with a patent, you can charge a high price and recover the cost, the hundreds of millions of dollars you've spent to get through it.
Right.
And then once you've recovered that, make a profit. We're lowering the bar where basically for every health condition, you have to go through a chemical drug model without intellectual property rights, which is still too expensive to survive. Right. And so that we are going to lose our products. When we came out with these our chemical drug regulations, they were for chemical drugs. If you want to use thalidomide, I'm just going to see if I can avoid the sun again. If you want to use thalidomide to treat nausea and pregnancy, and for your viewers who don't know, that was a drug in the 60s that caused birth defects where babies were born without limbs. It was a huge scandal because there wasn't enough testing done to show that it was safe in pregnancy, and yet we allowed it in Canada. They didn't in the States, but we allowed it, and it was a national drug approval scandal. But most of us can agree that, if you're going to introduce a novel chemical into the human body for a therapeutic purpose, you should prove it's safe and effective before it's allowed. And really it should be much more rigorous than our current system is. But when we're talking about something like ginger tea that we've been safely using for thousands of years to treat nausea in pregnancy, maybe we shouldn't have to go through clinical trials, and maybe we don't have to prove it's safe. I mean, come on, you can buy the same tea packaged differently in the grocery section just because you like ginger tea. So are we going to pretend it's dangerous just because we put on the package, oh, it can assist with nausea, and, for nausea, drink 2 cups instead of 1 type thing. Like, some instructions. Does that make it unsafe? Like, come on. I don't think there were health food stores in malls until the late 80s. And now every mall has a health food store.
Yeah.
And, I don't think I was probably in my 30s before I even heard of a naturopathic doctor or a homeopathic doctor or a traditional Chinese practitioner. We've kind of had this revival. We used to have them. And then, the chemical drug model took over and pushed us out. And recently we've had this revival. Well, that became threatening to the pharmaceutical companies and to the regulatory bodies, Health Canada and the FDA and other ones, that actually their wages are paid from the pharmaceutical companies. So like Health Canada, most of their budget comes from the fees they charge the chemical drug companies. Like they know where their bread is buttered. And in their internal documents, they refer to the pharmaceutical companies as their clients. So they started to impose the chemical drug model on natural remedies in both the US and Canada in the late 80s and into the 90s. And citizens noticed the products were going missing and companies were going under, and it was just this big disaster. And so they rebelled. And in the United States, the rebellion was so big that Congress had to look at it and, hold hearings on natural supplements, and, the regulatory bodies saying, oh, they're unsafe, which is pure propaganda lie. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk about that in a second. But the Congress decided that is a nonsense argument, and they passed a law, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, where they deemed them by law to be safe. But in Canada, we have a citizen rebellion, and it was so big that, like the United States, our parliament looked into it. The Standing Committee of Health was asked by the health minister, Alan Rock, to hold extensive hearings, not just cursory, extensive hearings into how we should regulate natural health products. And my understanding is, that it was the broadest consultation of any standing committee in Canadian history. They looked into it. And same as the United States, like, don't pretend these are dangerous. Don't impose a chemical drug model on them. That's completely inappropriate. We're going to lose manufacturers. Right now, we have a whole bunch of small manufacturers. But what's going to happen is we'll lose those, and the companies that survive will just use contract manufacturers. So we'll end up with a couple of contract manufacturers. And then it's super easy for Health Canada to shut down the industry. They just shut down a couple of contract manufacturers and we're done. And it's right in their gazetting document. Like, you go to Canada Gazette, I'm not making this up. They're going to use, every penny to hire more inspectors because they're increasing the regulatory burden once they harmonize us with the chemical over-the-counter drugs.
Right.
So we need these inspectors to make sure that these regulations are being adhered to, and we need the inspectors to go out and censor truthful health information. We're protected against fraud, untruthful claims. But Health Canada takes the position in the area of therapeutic products that all you're allowed to say is that when you apply for a license, they give you a label claim. So all you're allowed to say is whatever's on the label claim that they give. And Health Canada takes the position is that's all you're allowed to say. So there are going to be a whole bunch of other truthful health information about that herb or that vitamin or that product. You can't say it. Let me give you an example with True Hope Nutritional Support.
Okay.
So True Hope developed a product called Empower Plus. It's a multi-ingredient vitamin and mineral supplement. And it's likely the most effective treatment for serious bipolar disorder in the world, bar none. That's my opinion. And it's the opinion of a lot of psychiatrists and researchers. Bruce, there are 35 peer-reviewed, published journal articles on Empower Plus. And some of them in like the blue chip journals like Journal of Psychiatry, Journal of Child and Adolescent Psychopharmacology. Like we're talking blue chip journals. We're talking good research. Bruce, all of this research behind these 35 journal publications are funded by governments around the world, including Canadian governments, like the government of Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about government-funded research published in peer-reviewed journals, some of them the blue chip journals. And Health Canada takes the position it is illegal for True Hope to share that government-funded research with you. So the URL is just nhppa.org. So it just stands for Natural Health Products. So NHP and then Protection Association. So nhppa.org. And we're a federal nonprofit. We incorporated in 2008, and we've basically been the watchdog on these issues. So when Health Canada comes out with things like they have now, we get all excited and get at it. Now, on the bottom of the page is a thing saying volunteer. We have volunteer forms for you to fill out. Volunteer. We have a contact page. Give us your email address so we can email you. We don't send out hundreds of emails and fill your box. We just don't do it. At most, we'll send an email a week, and I don't even think we send an email a week. So, but if we're having a campaign, like we just launched yesterday, we've written a private members bill to get rid of these $5 million day fines, like to undo those sections of the budget bill that impose them. We are so lucky because we see it and we get to decide to stand up and hold the line as long as we can. I think we're going to win. But the beauty is you get to actually decide that you are going to fight for freedom and you're going to sacrifice for freedom, whatever the cost. You're going to purchase freedom with what you do. And there's no better place to be than being willing to purchase freedom.